Tottenham 1, Liverpool 2. Isak off the bench, scores a goal, immediately gets injured and goes off. The early signs are that the injury is not good, and we've spoken about that at the top of the podcast and the implications that has on Mo Salah. One man who does look in form and is posting numbers, Crook, is Hugo Ekitike, still around and bang in form. He looks a seriously classy player, doesn't he?
He does, and I think the biggest compliment you can pay him is how far he's come from that brainless red card against Southampton when clearly he was feeling the pressure of Isak coming in and Salah being there. He didn't feel like he was the main man. I think he does now, and I think they've needed him because obviously a lot of the signings they've made in the summer have not performed. I thought Florian Wirtz actually had one of his better games against Spurs, and obviously he's got that assist now, which is a monkey off his back. But Ekitike, over all the summer signings, has been the one who's produced consistently. And yes, you can maybe, if you're a Tottenham fan, complain that there was a push in the back, but it was a brilliant header, a brilliant leap, and I was pleased the goal stood.
Is that consistency in action in the Premier League?
That's consistency, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Sure?
My middle name.
Yeah, yesterday on the Premier League show that we did, the Game Day Live show, Crookie wandered down a bit of a cul-de-sac, didn't you, by having a go at the referees for their inconsistency. Because he suggested that the Romero push was very similar to the one that was inflicted on Calvin Bassey at Craven Cottage earlier in the season when they played Manchester United. And he said, you can't give that one and then, they did give the other one as well. No, there is consistency. I'm just talking nonsense. It was one of those moments where he started down an area and he just couldn't pull back from it, and he just thought, in the end, I'm just going to go with it and just say I'm talking nonsense. It was very, very funny. Unlike what Romero ended up doing afterwards, and there have been a few brainless red cards this weekend. What was the worst?
Christian Romero for me. Complete head loss from a captain, supposedly a senior player, at a time when Thomas Frank really needs his players to stand up and be counted. And I tweeted on Saturday night, I got a lot of stick from Tottenham fans, don't care, I'll stand by it. That Christian Romero red card for me epitomises all that's wrong with Tottenham at this moment in time. There's someone there who has cost them goals. Stuart Pearce, I remember being very scathing of Romero during their game against Manchester United earlier in the season. He's not that good a defender. I appreciate he's won the World Cup, and that's something that I can only dream of, and a lot of players can only dream of. But he makes too many mistakes. He gets too many bookings. He gets himself sent off. He's ill-disciplined, and I think it tells you there's a disconnect between Thomas Frank and his players at this moment in time. I think he's struggling with a dressing room that is ill-disciplined and over-entitled.
Yeah, look, I mean, before I talk about Romero, Crookie, I know you scored at Fratton Park in a charity game, so, you have to start somewhere. Never stop your dream of ending up winning the World Cup and scoring that winning goal for England. It may well happen.
I'm going to bet that it doesn't happen. I mean, I don't know, but, it's the odds almost as big as Aston Villa winning the title, but you never know.
Yeah, I think they'd be a lot larger than that. But until then, Romero can always show you his World Cup. But look, no, but you're absolutely right. I mean, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing? Somehow you found a way to get it back to 2-1. You've just won a free kick yourself in a dangerous area where you could go on and get the equalisers with a header, and you go and do something like that. I'd slightly disagree with Crookie that I don't think that shows there's a disconnect between Thomas Frank and Romero, because he's done that pretty much all his Tottenham career and even beyond that. But I do think the Van der Ven interview was strange, going on the overlap, and you just don't want your player to be doing that, and that possible holes you can pick up in that way. That would
sanction that, because that is quite a big thing to do. Like, you try and get a player to come onto a Premier League player, an active Premier League player, onto your radio show, your podcast, or whatever. It has to go through 17 different hoops in order to be able to get it signed off, right? So who signed that off? Who has allowed Mickey Van der Ven to go on that show and almost put doubts in people's minds about the relationships between players and staff?
Well, you can only imagine this has been fixed up by his agency as opposed to the club themselves, because you're right, it'd be very strange for Spurs to allow this to happen and then not to have some kind of editorial approval, because as much as you can laud Van der Ven and for some of the praise he's given Postecoglou, it doesn't half undermine the current manager.
Yeah, very strange situation, because Crook will tell you when we do these interviews with some of the players that we are given on a week-to-week basis, everything is vetted so that there are certain things you can and certain things you cannot go into. And any sort of wandering down lines of speculation is immediately shut down by the press officers as a result. So it was a very strange thing to do. But what do you think that that says about Tottenham Hotspur and the relationship between players and manager? Because just overall, really, I'm trying to get a sense of where they're going with Thomas Frank. Is it going to work, or are they going to be in a situation where actually, in the end, they're just going to cut their losses and realise that this just was not the right appointment? I can't really work out what the best course of action is here. I mean, there's part of you that wants Tottenham to stick with him because we know he's a good coach. He's a great communicator. He's got good history. You want those people who have developed through the system to end up going on and taking these big jobs. But it doesn't feel like it's fitting, does it?
Well, I don't want to turn this into a Manchester United discussion, but it is relevant because you go back to the Europa League final. It was contested by teams who would ultimately go on and finish 16th and 17th in the Premier League. They both did a lot of business in the summer, as Simon Jordan pointed out to me last week when I questioned the ambition of Tottenham. They did spend £200 million. They did get a new manager in. United regularly this season have gone into game weeks with the opportunity to get into the top 4 or 5 in the table. They're only 3 points behind 5th as we sit here now. Tottenham, 7 points behind 5th place. So at the moment, it's the Europa League runners-up who seem to be kicking on and seem more capable of challenging for Europe. Tottenham look like they're going to end the season languishing in the lower half of the table again. Maybe not as low as last season, but that's where if you're a Thomas Frank detractor, you can say, well, actually, what progress are we seeing here?
He hasn't been given time. I mean, look, let's be honest. He hasn't even had a window where there's no Daniel Levy, and we don't know if those people being bought are Daniel Levy signings or Thomas Frank signings.
Listen, don't fall into that trap, Scott. The Lewis family are Enoch. They're still run by the same people. Okay, Daniel Levy made a lot of decisions and he protected their money, but he wasn't doing it without orders from above. So this is not going to be a whole new Tottenham. It's nonsense.
I'm not saying it's going to be a whole new Tottenham, but what I am saying is you're not telling me that Enoch and the Lewis family sat down, looked at the data, looked at the analysis and said, right, yeah, we'll go with him. They've left that to Daniel Levy to trust him. And he, as a businessman, there ain't many people better to make the finances look good while still be bringing players in. Kudos. I watched him in that Liverpool game. He's bereft of confidence. He's gone at the moment. And they've got to try and find a way to get the best out of him. Xavi Simons, forget the sending off. He hasn't hit the ground running in any way whatsoever. And people might turn around and say, well, that's down to the manager to get the best out of them. I just think Thomas Frank, where you look at, you mentioned it there, where they've started from. Yes, they won the Europa League. It was a poor Europa League, but it doesn't matter. They won the Europa League. But actually, you judge a team on where they are in the league. And they finished the worst of the rest. They were never going to go down, but they were the worst of the rest. So they're starting from that level. And they haven't even had a window yet without Daniel Levy's, controls and tentacles all over it. So it's not great. It's not been a great start for Thomas Frank. I do worry slightly that Mickey van der Ven went on there and kind of, alluded the fact of how much he loved Ange. I just think there was no need for it. But he needs time and he needs backing. He doesn't need the people to go the other way. And he needs the people above to say, we're with you, what do you want? And we're about to step up and help you.
But you can only get that backing, that pat on the back, that reassurance, if he's delivering on the football pitch. And they're not delivering on the football pitch at the moment. And at home, in particular, you are asking for trouble if you only win 4 games in 23. I don't care who you are. If you keep losing matches at home, you're going to pile pressure onto your shoulders. So somehow, some way, he's got to find a way of start to win games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Because unless he does that, the pressure isn't going to go anywhere. It's going to be on him.
Of course, he has to win games. Managers know that. Ultimately, it's all about winning games. My argument is this is a guy who you identified, who you thought was good, was ready to take the next step up. And actually, how much control has he had? Always, Sam.
Who identified him, Scott? Who identified him? Because, okay, we might think he's great at what he does because we've seen him coach at Brentford and we've spoken to him on a number of occasions and we believe that this guy's got something that he can deliver in the Premier League. But the people that have appointed Thomas Frank are the same people that appointed Ange Postecoglou, are the same people that appointed Jose Mourinho and Conte and Stellini when Conte walked out. The same people that gave the job to Ryan Mason ahead of a cup final when they qualified and had the chance to win a League Cup for the first time in God knows how long. It's the same people that have done the recruitment that isn't top draw. So all of the things you're saying there are correct, but ultimately, this is a club that have got a history of mediocre recruitment in every department.
But this is my point. All that was done with Daniel Levy at the club, and him making the decisions.
But if Langer and Paratici are still there, which they are at this moment, then they're going to be the ones that are recruiting the players, aren't they?
No, I agree with that, but there's no way it would have happened without Daniel Levy. Now, they might have understood the parameters that they're working under. Otherwise, they're just not very good. But this is, yes, money's been spent, but actually, in terms of wages, you're not getting those ready-made players that will take it to the next level. Always has been, always will be about the players. And the players are not good enough at the moment. They've got some players that are out injured. They've also got some players who are just not cutting it at the moment, new signings. Thomas Frank has to find a way. Ultimately, it's all about winning games, and especially at home. I want to see him given the very least this season, a couple of windows, and let's judge him on the beginning of next.